Hello and welcome to F1 Chat. Today we're going to talk about the results of the Australian Grand Prix. So we're going to start off with Alpine as we usually do. Ocon P16, Gasly P13. Alpine didn't have the worst race that they could have had. So pretty good results for what their car is. I mean, now the real issue with their car is not the drivers, it's more so the car itself. It's heavy, it weighs too much. The aerodynamics are kind of crap on it. So it's kind of not surprising, not really close to the points, but it for what the car is and for what how the team's going, it's kind of expected at this point. They're going to be at the back. I think that's safe to say. Next up, Sauber kick, whatever you want to call it. Zhao P15, Bottas P14. The team seems to be just going backwards each week. The biggest problem is the pit stops, not to mention the pace of the car. It's not particularly great. Kind of like Alpine, they're just kind of squandering at the back. Not really much to say. Not a lot of progress. The pit stops are just so bad. Both drivers had very long pit stops again. The same issue that they've had the past few weeks, and they seem to not be able to get it solved, which is really weird. So yeah, not looking too good. And next up is Williams. Albon, P11, Sargent didn't have a car even, let's say. So Sargent had his car stolen by Albon. The team obviously approved of this. I think it was a tough decision for Sargent to get his car taken away, even though he didn't crash or make any mistakes, but he just has to prove why they were wrong. That's in the next few races and the rest of the season. If he can start scoring points and outdo Albon, they're gonna really regret doing that. But I understand the decision. I think Albon is the better driver and has been consistently the better driver over the course of the last season or so. So it makes sense. Now for Albon, he didn't get points. Ended up P11. Not a great finish really, but if he had gotten points, it would have been like, okay, good. And if they kept Sargent in the car and he got points, then we would have said, oh, Albon would have gotten more points. Or if he didn't get points, we would have said, oh, Albon would have, if it was switched, Albon would have finished, P10 or P9. So yeah, Albon just needs to continue beating Sargent. He can't worry about this too much. He just has to continue to be consistently good and prove why the team gave him the car in the first place. So yeah, kind of a weird situation, but it's not the first time it's happened. Overall, Williams needs to see some more progress because they're starting to fall behind a little bit. So the next team is Haas. K-Mag, P10, 1 point. Hulk, P9, 2 points. Hulkenberg. So Haas have actually improved the raceability of their car. It seems like they've been able to get that race pace that they didn't have last year. They fixed all those issues they had with the tires wearing out fast and the slowness in the race. And they seem to be outperforming their expectations, which is like really cool. I mean, they're now 7th in the championship, and that's a good result for them, especially after the team principal said they were going to come last. But I think the downplay of expectations has now they're outperforming that. So good for them. Hopefully this will continue. 3 points is a huge haul for them. I mean, they're still beating out 3 other teams that haven't scored any points yet. So, I mean, it's not the worst for Haas. It's not the best for Haas, but it's not the worst either. Like they're doing semi good, and it's hopefully they can continue. Reddit Racing Bulls V-Carb, Ricardo P12, Yuki Tsunoda P8, 6 points. So Ricardo hasn't looked as good at Yuki, and he could possibly get replaced if he doesn't start doing better because he's been kind of lounging at the back, hasn't really shown much pace in any of the races. So I think, even though P12 is not a bad result, it's just not points like Yuki has gotten. And for Yuki, he's developed into a good driver, and he might be in line for a Red Bull seat if he can keep this performance up. That's the headline for him. I think this drive and his consistency showing race in and race out is going to be the thing that gets him that Red Bull seat, especially where Perez maybe starting to struggle now that he's been a few races in the season. We'll get to Perez later, but Yuki has shown that he can be consistent. He's actually turned into a good driver now, and it's amazing what you can do when you let a driver stay in for a few years, because Red Bull tends to pull the drivers way too fast. Look at Nick DeVries, look at a bunch of other guys they pull, Gasly, all these guys. So even Ricardo, and so even though Ricardo left on his own, but still, if you let a guy develop, it's amazing what can happen. So P8, 6 points, moves Racing Bulls up in the standings, six already, are all the way up to six. They were still at the back behind Haas, jumped above them. Good result for Tsunoda and for the team. So up next, Aston Martin. Alonso, P8, 4 points. Stroll, P6, 8 points. Strong race for both drivers, especially Stroll. He had good pace, and they had a good points haul because Mercedes double DNF, who we're talking about next. Both Mercedes drivers didn't finish, so this is a huge result for Aston Martin. Kind of keeps them in the mix. Keeps them in the mix. Kind of draws them closer to the top four, top five. And so Alonso, he was dropped. I think he finished like 6 or 7. I think he finished 6 initially. So they dropped him to 8th after a penalty because he in the last lap before, or actually not the last lap. It was the 2 laps before the race ended. In the one corner, he broke where Russell crashed. He broke in front of him when he usually doesn't brake there. Broke pretty hard. And it caused Russell to crash because the car was unstable. Like the downforce of Russell's car changed significantly, and that caused him to go off the track. And although it wasn't an illegal thing that he did, like you're allowed to brake. I mean, it's fine. You can take the corner how you want when you're the lead driver. But because Russell crashed due to his erratic driving, I think the penalty was deserved. So yeah, it was a weird thing. Whereas if Russell didn't crash, and Alonso had taken that break in the corner like he did, it wouldn't have been a talking point at all. Like there would have been no one would even care. Like you wouldn't just look over it as like, okay, whatever, it's fine. But because Russell crashed, and it was a pretty dramatic crash as well. So yeah, I think he deserved the penalty. Obviously, when you hadn't been braking that corner and then you start braking just randomly, it's kind of like, come on, we know you're trying to cheese it there. Come on. So up next we have Mercedes. Double DNF. Both cars didn't finish. Hamilton had a reliability issue. Wasn't happy with the car, so he was out early on in the race. And then for Russell, he had that scary crash. Now the team radio of him calling for a red flag because he was in the middle of the track was pretty scary. It was weird to watch it and listen to it. It was, you could tell he was like really scared because blind corner, he could have gotten hit. Like it has happened in the past, so it is a scary situation. But it's also because of how that corner is, the wall goes in, so he kind of bounced off the wall and back in the middle of the track. Even though it was just like a crash like Albon had, a bunch of other drivers have had, so it's not crazy. It wasn't the craziest crash I've ever seen, but it definitely was scary that he ended up in the middle of the track sideways, which is like wild. Up next, we have McLaren. Piastri, P12, 12 points. Or P4, 12 points, sorry. And Norris, P3, 15 points. McLaren got their first podium of the season. Piastri had a good race, he showed consistency. His second P4 of the season. Could have had a podium without the team orders to switch drivers. I think the crowd wanted him to have a podium, but McLaren had him switch like in the middle of the race because Norris was quicker, but he lacked the overall pace of the Ferraris. Good podium, good points, good overall point haul because they're in the race for second or third. Probably realistically like third. I mean, I think with the struggles of Aston Martin and Mercedes, definitely they're a strong third place team, I feel like. So this was a good race, another good race from McLaren. Hopefully they can keep it consistent. Kind of just hang around that third, fourth spot. Perfect. So as a McLaren fan, I'm pretty happy. I wish that they could have fought Ferrari a little harder, for the win, but I don't think the pace was there. And then up next, Ferrari. Sainz, P1, 25 points. Leclerc, P2, 19 points. Sainz was very impressive in his win and performance given his condition after his surgery. He deserves a top seat next season at Mercedes or Red Bull. He shouldn't go to Stake or El Sauber or Haas or anything like that. He needs to go to Mercedes or Red Bull. Like, he can't be in any team that's bad. He needs to be in a good team. This guy drove his ass off, and he wasn't even feeling good physically, so it's very impressive. Leclerc wasn't on top of his game, but he still managed to help Ferrari finish 1-2 for the first time in a few years since I believe it was 2022. So I mean, overall, you can't be mad at this race. I mean, the one thing is like if it was switched and Leclerc finished first and Sainz finished P2, Leclerc would have been leading the championship. So there's that. That's the only small thing that could have been maybe made it slightly better, but it's good for Sainz. He's having that like kind of FU season, that contract year. He's just going off, and good for him because he's gonna get a good seat if he keeps this up for sure. And then last but not least, we have Red Bull. Perez P5, 10 points. Verstappen did not finish. So Verstappen had a brake lockup and it overheated and then blew up. He was out on lap 3. His first did not finish in 43 races since 2022, which is insane. He had that long of a streak of just he always finished, even if it wasn't in first. He always finished, and a lot of those were in first too. But so that's pretty crazy. So the race we thought we were gonna get without Verstappen wasn't exactly that because Sainz had a huge lead, he did like 7-second lead. And then Perez had a disappointing race because he never really had the pace to fight at the front. Like he was up there in the top 10, but he didn't really, after he got past Alonso, he didn't really do anything. Like he kind of was just kind of stuck in like no man's land. Just P5, 10 points. I mean, still a good race, but the expectations for the car that he's in is kind of like way bigger. He should have been like second or first, or because like if it was Verstappen left in the race, he would have been fighting at the front, or in the front pretty much. So yeah, kind of a disappointing thing. Definitely kind of lets Red Bull down a little bit. Gets Ferrari quite close. So yeah, that's F1 chat. The next race will be in Japan, and on the evidence of last year, because a similar thing happened last year where in Singapore, Carlos Sainz won, Russell crashed in the last lap. And then in Japan, Verstappen won by like 30 seconds. So I'm expecting another similar result where Verstappen's going to absolutely dominate in Japan. And yeah, tune in about 2 weeks for the next F1 chat. Thanks for watching.